Harlan, of all the people I know, I guess you're the most involved person I know in the music business. You have a recording company, Royalty Records, and you have your own publishing company. You're a working artist. Why did you involve yourself in all these different aspects of the industry?
Well, I guess one of the reasons, Russ, as you know, in Canada, most of the major record companies are offshoots of either American labels or European labels, and you sort of get happening in Canada. Now, there's a couple of exceptions, and we want to make sure everybody is aware of that, but the majority of them are no more than like a flow-through company, and they get most of their directives from their home offices elsewhere, and it makes it pretty tough for a Canadian artist to really get anything happening at the source. And our experience was just this, and we felt that there's a lot of talent, especially in Western Canada, that hasn't been getting everything happening, and we thought, well, we'll take a crack at experimenting and maybe trying to build our own company to the point where we can become competitive, at least on a Canadian basis, and then look at international markets.
Who are some of the people that you're concerned with and involved with in your recording effort?
Actually, Russ, right now we're involved with 5 artists as far as production agreements are concerned for Royalty, the record company, and I just name them for you: Gary Felgard, the singer-songwriter from BC, and Jimmy Arthur Orge, who's been around quite a while, but never really done anything on that major scale. A young man called Brian Sklar, who's at the house band on the Funny Farm show on CFRN have it out here, 3TV, and a young gal called Chris Nielsen, who we're just starting to do some sessions on, and then from now on, for the next year or so at least, I'm going to be on my own label as well in Canada, which is Royalty. So yeah, I guess you'd say we're getting in there, kicking our feet.
When we first met, it was up in the wilds of Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, where we were both beating the musical bushes, as it were, and I see lately, as I've tried to get hold of you to come and do this show, that you've been down in Los Angeles and working at the World's Fair in Spokane, which is just great. Tell me what you've been doing down there.
Well, after our first venture in squirrel hunting up in Prince Albert, you got one squirrel, I didn't get nothing, so I thought, the best squirrel hunters obviously come from the States, so I'm going to go down there and see what I can find. But no, Russ, yeah, it's been quite a change the last couple of years. What we're doing down there is we went down to talk to record companies on the basis of what we might be able to get happening, because, as we said before, Royalty, our idea with Royalty, and I think you'd agree with this, I know your background in the business is extensive as heck, is the fact that we'd like to sign our artists on the Canadian side, but we'd like to leave it open so that we can negotiate country by country and you know, that type of thing. And what we were doing was just feeling out the record companies down there as to showing them what we had to kind of get things started. And I think it's going to work very well. I think it's a year or so away, but we got good response on some of the material and good response on a couple of the artists. And as you know, you're from that part of the country originally, that down there they work on promotion budgets. They have their things set up a good year in advance. And this is one of the things we ran into. And on the other hand, most of the people that we talked to said, listen, with what we've heard, just wait till we get finished with what we have, and then we'd like to have you come back and we'll sit down and talk and see where we can take it from there. So I think it was a worthwhile trip on that basis.
Harlan, I have a twofold question for you. Number one, do you feel that the CRTC ruling has helped us as Canadians stand better on our own musical feet? And secondly, since you've been down in the States dealing with the American market, how are we received, or how are Canadians received now, coming down from Canada to that big U.S. market, say, as how we may have been received before the CRTC ruling became into effect?
Well, you've got about 3 questions there. Let's answer the last one first, because I think this is a misconception. The United States, people in the United States, probably play 30% Canadian music anyway. And it's something that a lot of, this is a touchy subject, because a lot of the broadcasters up here don't believe that Canadian music is as good as it is. And they read Billboard and Cashbox a lot more than they read RPM. And Billboard and Cashbox are no different than RPM. They're subject to the same type of hype, same type of promotion, only they're bigger papers. The American broadcasting people, they don't treat really Anne Murray as Canadian or Gordon Lightfoot as Canadian, but it was an interesting thing. I monitored a couple of stations in L.A. when I was down there, and I found in 2 days of listening to them, at least 1 out of 4 songs was by a Canadian group, like Backman Turner Overdrive. Guess Who? You could go on and on and on. They didn't really refer to them, but they play, well, I would say very close to 30% without legislation. The problem with the Canadian broadcasters up here, yet they don't believe in their own people. They think if it's not from somewhere, you know, like homegrown product, they just can't believe it's real and that it's as good as it is. First question was, has it helped? Yes, definitely so, because out here, especially the business community in Canada doesn't understand copyrights. As you understand them, you're a publisher and a writer. There's probably a handful of us rest out here in Western Canada who do. Dickie Dameron, guys like Bob Ruzicka, the guys at Damon, yourself, and myself. I don't think you could go much farther with people who've had experience with copyrights or understand what a song is worth if it's properly executed. And therefore, your business community has completely overlooked it, and the large American publishers have come into Canada, Western Canada, Eastern Canada, and really taken a pile of money out in the last 50, 60 years. CRTC legislation, as I understood it, was actually legislated in 1928, and the government just put it into effect and put some teeth into it. And my God, it's the best thing that ever happened to the country. If a lot of the politicians would open up their eyes and take a look at the cash flow that had stopped going out of the country, and a lot of your radio station people, people who run the radio stations would take a look at that aspect of it, they'd start playing 40 and 50% Canadian records.
The business end of this music that you're involved with is enough to command all your time and all your attention, and yet you find time to be a full-time working artist and a heck of a songwriter. And I wonder if this, all the business that you have to control affects your creativity.
It doesn't affect me as much as it does my wife. I'm never home. Well, you get a little too busy to really do a lot of the things I'd like to do. I'd like to write a little more. I'd like to produce a little more, because I'm very new at it and I don't know that much about it, and I'd like to learn that end of it. But the end, I think if there's a couple of things that fascinate me about the music business, it's publishing and writing and production. I love to sing. Everybody's sort of a ham at heart in this business, but when it comes down to it, I find that the creativity, you know, that's the thing that I kind of enjoy most of all.
I happen to know that you're right in the middle of recording a new album, and I'd be interested to know what the nature of the music is. Are you going any new directions, and maybe who has written?
Well, musically it's going to be a little bit different, I think, than anything I've put out before. We got tabbed with a label, Uptown Country, about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it's a good label. I think country is basically a pretty honest music. Uptown Country, I don't think really means that it's that different. It's more, you could call it our Harlan Smith country, maybe, because it's not quite, it's not a Buck Owens sound, it's not a Glenn Campbell sound, it's sort of what I feel myself. I'm writing most of the songs on the album. There's a couple on by, Gary Felgard, who I mentioned. I'm going to use one of his, and I may put one of Bob Ruzicka's songs on it as well. I'm not sure yet. Got one cut. I'm not just sure which way to go with it. But basically, it'll be Richard Harrell, another young man from Edgar, is going to have one of the songs on it. Other than that, it's one thing about it's going to be a totally Western Canadian album again, but musically a little bit different. It may appeal to a little broader spectrum of people. Of course, that's what everybody hopes for.
Country music must certainly cover a lot more area, a lot more listening audience than it did, say, 10 years ago. And I wonder if the country audiences, the country record buyer, is a harder person to change in terms of their musical views. Is the country music world a hard thing to bend, hard thing to try something new?
I don't think so. I think that country music people cover a much broader spectrum of people than the industry realizes. I think they basically are prone to listen to good music. If you want to talk about country, Charlie Rich has country roots, but there's some awfully fine music coming out of some of those albums. Anne Murray, talk about a Canadian, was nominated, of course, for Country Female Vocalist of the Year in North America, and she keeps denying that she's country, and yet she's basically country, whether she likes it or not herself, and that's where her success really lies. But there's an awfully big market of adult people who like things with a country feel, but that doesn't mean that you get back to the old style nasal type of thing. It's basically, a lot of it's just damn fine music.
sun going down in a summer sky. Night is coming on. You've packed your bag for the Greyhound bus. You say you're moving on. You've grown tired of things I do. You've been around too long. Big city life is calling you. It's time to move along. 'Cause I'm just the son of a country man, and that's not enough for you. And you want things that I can't give. Big city life is calling you. You say you tried so very hard to learn to live with me, and the ways of a son of a country man are not what you thought they'd be. You've grown tired of things I do. You've been around too long. Big city life is calling you. It's time to move along. 'Cause I'm just the son of a country man, and that's not enough for you. And you want things that I can't give. Big city life is calling you. Cause I'm just the son of a country man, and that's not enough for you. And you want things that I can't give. Big city life is calling you.